Virgo has a particular way of caring. When something isn't working, it notices. No one needs to point it out. It sees the loose screw before the chair collapses, catches the counting error before it becomes a problem, anticipates what might go wrong with a clarity that sometimes amazes people and sometimes exhausts them. That capacity for observation isn't a quirk or insecurity, even though it can look that way at times. At its core, it's a way of relating to the world, through attention, through analysis, through a genuine desire for things to work well. Virgo is the sixth sign of the zodiac and belongs to the earth element. That places it alongside Taurus and Capricorn in that group of energies that need the concrete, the tangible, the things you can touch, build, and sustain over time. But Virgo has something distinctive within that group. Its modality is mutable, which means it's a sign of transition. It sits right before a shift in season, in that in-between moment when summer is starting to let go and autumn hasn't quite arrived. That placement is not accidental. Virgo is an energy that knows how to adapt, that can look at what isn't working and adjust it, that doesn't hold on to one way of doing things if a more efficient one is available. Its ruling planet is Mercury, the same one that governs Gemini. But in Virgo, Mercury expresses itself differently. Here it's less about quick communication, rapid exchange, or curiosity that jumps from topic to topic. In Virgo, Mercury operates through analysis, precision, and language as a tool for clarity. Virgo thinks in order to understand how things work, to find the exact point where something fails or where it could improve. That intelligence isn't theoretical or abstract, it's practical, applied, and solution-oriented. And that's one of the keys to understanding this energy. Virgo doesn't seek order for aesthetics or out of habit. It seeks order because order allows it to function, because chaos makes it genuinely difficult to concentrate, to move forward, to feel grounded. This isn't rigidity, even though it can read that way. It's a real need for structure, for clarity, for knowing where everything stands. In everyday life, this shows up as people who tend to have systems, even if those systems are entirely their own and make no sense to anyone else. Someone with a strong Virgo energy might have a very specific way of organizing their time, their files, their kitchen, their routines. Not because they're obsessive, but because that structure gives them the foundation from which they can move efficiently. When that foundation breaks down, when the environment gets chaotic or plans fall apart, discomfort follows. Sometimes anxiety too. That same precision that organizes personal space also shapes how Virgo sees the people around it. It tends to observe, to register, to notice what isn't being said, but is clearly there. In friendship, that translates into a quiet, deep loyalty. This isn't the sign that makes grand declarations, that says out loud how much it values someone, or that turns every shared moment into a celebration. But it is the one that remembers what you told it 3 months ago, the one that shows up with exactly what you need before you even ask for it, the one that stays close without making noise, but with a presence you can feel. Virgo's support tends to come in the form of action. It finds you the information you need, helps you move, makes you something to eat when you're not doing well. Practical care is its native language. In love, that same quality can be an enormous strength and also a source of misunderstanding. Virgo can love through daily presence, through attentive listening, through a genuine desire for shared life to function well. It doesn't need grand gestures and doesn't particularly expect them, but it does need the relationship to make sense, to have coherence, for both people to be building something real together. When that exists, Virgo can be deeply committed, steady, and attentive. When it doesn't, when it senses the other person isn't approaching things with the same level of care and responsibility, friction starts to build. One of Virgo's relational challenges lives exactly there: the tendency to point out what isn't working, not out of cruelty, but out of that internal logic that says if something has a flaw, the right move is to name it so it can be fixed. The problem is that people don't always need to be corrected. Sometimes they need support, or simply to be heard without the conversation turning into an analysis of what they could have done differently. Learning to separate the moment for presence from the moment for problem-solving is one of the most important lessons for this energy. At work, Virgo often shines in ways that don't always get the recognition they deserve. It's the sign of processes, of the details that make things function, of the careful review that keeps a small error from becoming a larger one. It can be extraordinarily efficient, methodical, and responsible. It spots problems before they become crises and knows how to build systems that make everyone's work easier. It rarely chases the spotlight, but its contribution is almost always essential. The challenge is learning to say when enough has been done, to draw a line between healthy responsibility and the weight no one actually asked it to carry alone. Virgo's relationship with discipline is intense. When it has structure, routine, and clear goals, it can be a remarkable force of consistency. It can maintain habits with a regularity that few other signs can match. The problem surfaces when that discipline turns into self-demand, when the standard it applies to its own work becomes something impossible to reach. Virgo can fall into the trap of measuring its self-worth by its productivity, of feeling like rest is a luxury it hasn't yet earned, of postponing enjoyment until everything is perfectly resolved. And everything, of course, is never perfectly resolved. Under pressure, this energy can become rigid, anxious, and critical. It can fixate on mistakes, its own or others, lose sight of the bigger picture while reviewing a detail, or feel genuine frustration when something doesn't reach the standard it considers acceptable. In those moments, the tendency to analyze becomes a loop with no exit. What went wrong? Where was the failure? What could have been done differently? The difference between Virgo in balance and Virgo under pressure isn't about how organized it is. It's about whether it can trust that what it did was enough. In balance, Virgo is intelligent, reliable, useful, committed, humble, and capable of improving what it touches without needing anyone to acknowledge it. It's the kind of energy that makes things work, that puts in the effort where others put in the words, that tends to the details because it understands that details matter. Under pressure, that same energy turns inward and becomes self-criticism, paralyzing perfectionism, and an inability to simply exist without producing. The path toward maturity for Virgo runs through understanding that striving to improve doesn't mean being at war with what's imperfect. That care doesn't have to be exhaustive to be real. That helping doesn't mean taking on everything no one else is holding. And that the deepest form of discipline isn't born from fear of failure, but from a conscious and kinder relationship with what one actually wants to build. Virgo teaches that details carry weight, that everyday life is shaped by small and sustained gestures, that tending to something with attention is a form of respecting it. But it also teaches, when it looks at itself honestly, that worth isn't earned through constant effort and doesn't disappear when something goes wrong. That sometimes the most important kind of order isn't in the environment around you, but in the way you treat yourself when things don't go exactly as planned.